Welcome to Ballet Bites. Today we're diving deep into the detective work of reconstructing lost ballets when not a single film exists and records are scarce.
Oh, this is fascinating. So, we're basically like piecing together a puzzle from scraps of notation and memories, right?
Exactly. You triangulate by pulling in notations like Benesh or Laban scores, choreographer notes, rehearsal photos, stage manager records, even critics' reviews, and then you map these to the musical scores, counts, and cues. It's intricate detective work.
And the whole idea is to get a reconstruction that's as authentic as possible, even when the choreographer's direct influence is missing?
Yep, precisely. The process involves mapping phrases to the score, rebuilding spacing from designs and stage plans, and then prototyping sections in the studio until every stylistic nuance, musicality, attack, aligns with what's known about the original creator.
I love that method. It's like you're not just recreating steps, you're recreating an entire artistic language.
Absolutely. Take Ashton's Foyer de Danse, for example. The goal is to recapture his trademark diagonal torso, clean neck, and those quick, well-placed feet, all while ensuring his signature buoyant musical phrasing comes through. And you start right at the
Interesting.
score.
But, isn't it tricky when the primary archive is so thin? How do you verify what's authentic?
That's where you really go in deep. You stress test surviving memories and coaching lineages against each other. For Foyer, for instance, you benchmark with experts like Ursula, Hageli, Christopher Carr, and figures from Sarasota Ballet who have kept Ashton's style alive. It's like a triangulated consensus.
I get that, but isn't there a risk? I mean, by relying on a select couple of coaching lineages, aren't we? Maybe narrowing the interpretation?
A fair critique indeed. Relying solely on a few voices could risk a narrow slant. However, the method intentionally involves cross-checking a range of sources, notation, archival photos, even external opinions like Anthony Dowell's insights, to counteract any individual
That
bias.
balance is key.
So it truly becomes a collaborative verification process.
Got it. And then moving over to Prokofiev's Le Pas d'Acier, we encounter a different kind of challenge with conflicting versions.
Exactly. Le Pas d'Acier is a case where the original concept from 1925 to 26, driven by constructivist intent, clashes with the, 1927 staged version that brings in folkloric elements. You're essentially choosing between a raw industrial narrative and a more softened rendition.
Right, I see. So if you want to honor Prokofiev's original idea, you'd privilege the constructivist aim of depicting modern labor and machine rhythms, yes?
Exactly. You'd align the movement to the industrial imagery, piston wrists, hinge elbows, a whole assembly line precision, and you'd document the 1927 Massine version as a variant, almost like an appendix, to acknowledge its historical presence without letting it dictate the core structure.
It's almost like deciding whether you chase the creator's initial blueprint or the version that audiences actually saw in the theater, isn't it?
Yep, and that brings us neatly to the classic ur-text versus performance tradition debate. For something like Ashton's Foyer, the 1932 performance becomes the ur-text since that's what originally existed, perfecting the evidence style. For Le Pas d'Acier, the ur-text is more conceptual, built from the original intent, not necessarily the premier evolved version.
Honestly, this kind of layered methodology reminds me of scientific research, where every hypothesis is cross-checked with a rigid set of controls.
Exactly. It's almost like art meets science. Every phrase in the reconstructed ballet is tied to specific bar numbers on the score. You set up detailed style Bibles with annotations, petits battements, fast foot articulations, the exact moment a dancer's shoulder line should shift, and everything is documented meticulously.
Yeah, that precision is crucial. And part of that documentation is also about ensuring transparency, not just for internal coherence, but to build trust with audiences and critics, right?
Correct. They recommend using what I'd call a layered toolkit for verification, comparing multiple notations, anchoring any movement to its corresponding score bar, reconstructing spatial movement based on costume and set designs, and even video logging every rehearsal with time-stamped annotations.
Exactly, that transparency is gold. I like the idea of publishing a sort of assumptions dossier too. It's like saying, Here's what we know and here's where we had to make an educated guess.
Right on. It adds accountability. Plus, bringing in an outside eye, a hostile friend who wasn't part of the original team, to critique the rehearsal is a brilliant way to spot modern habits that might be out of sync with period-specific techniques.
Speaking of which, there's also this intriguing question of who gets to own style as we move into 2025. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, the ownership debate. It seems the future is collaborative. Foundations maintain the archive and bridle the historical authenticity. Specialist companies keep the muscle memory alive, and academic labs contribute by unearthing deep dive research. Together, they knit a coherent language that evolves but never loses its historic core.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for a company reconstructing Foyer de Danse, you'd have scheduled studio weekends with experts like Hageli, cross-checks with Carr's Royal Ballet insights, and detailed coaching with figures from the Sarasota scene to, lock in those stylistic nuances?
Exactly that. The aim is, by early setup and consistent dialogue, to lock down specifics like how deep the croisé is, how the head follows the arm, and even nuances like the bounce within the musical phrasing. All of it gets meticulously recorded and refined.
That's brilliant. And if someone encounters an inconsistency during a performance, they can refer back to these records, ensuring that the evolution of the dance remains honest to its origins.
Precisely. Every assumption and every revision is documented so that, if needed, the next team can efficiently challenge or even improve upon it. It's like having a living archive that grows with every production cycle.
I love it. It really validates the artistic process. Reviving a lost ballet isn't just about recreating steps. It's about restoring the whole context and letting future generations experience it authentically.
Spot on. And it gives young dancers a unique passport into a style and era that prior records only hint at. They experience not just a dance, but a piece of history reborn.
Yeah, that's inspiring. Now, there's one thing I'm still mulling over. While this method provides rigorous structure, don't you think there's a danger it might stifle some of the organic interpretation that live performance so beautifully allows?
That's a very good point. I mean, if you, lean too heavily on rigid mapping, you might end up with something that feels overly mechanical. But the iterative phase is designed precisely to allow stylistic experimentation, where the director can tweak épaulement musical wit and attack while still referencing that documented structure.
Balance is art with science. It's like following a recipe but leaving room for, a little creative flair.
Exactly. In the end, it's about striking that balance between fidelity to historical context and the organic evolution of the dance, ensuring that each performance is both a tribute and a living interpretation.
And that's what makes these reconstructions so exciting. It's not just preservation. It's a dynamic dialogue with history.
Right. And the final action list really encapsulates it. Lock in your benchmark lineage, tie every movement to a score bar, let the design cue the spacing, and document every assumption to help the next team carry the baton.
Sounds like a recipe for artistic resurrection. A checklist that keeps the performance honest yet creative.
Absolutely. So, for those of you tackling lost ballets out there, may your notebooks be tidy, your counts exact, and your creative spirit ever bold.
And for everyone listening, let's keep the conversation alive. Share your thoughts, challenge the norms, and celebrate the art of making history on stage. Thanks for joining this deep dive into the reconstruction process on Ballet Bites.